その目、さしずめ、忍に敗れた狼。
Hello and welcome to the sixthaxis.com. I'm Stefan and today I'm joined by Rebecca.
Hello.
Rebecca has gone off and played Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, which is the next game coming from FromSoftware, which is quite difficult to say because you've got to say From twice in a row. And you obviously know FromSoftware from their work on the Dark Souls series and also Bloodborne, which was a PS4 exclusive. So, Rebecca, Shadows Die Twice, it's basically just Dark Souls, but with ninjas and samurai, right?
It is kind of set up that way, but then once you actually get into the gameplay, it feels completely different. I think that it's undeniable to say that it's not related to the Souls games while you're playing it because all of the similarities are there. But then there's so many new features that make you think, oh, they've clearly expanded on the Soulsborne franchise and they've kept the things that worked really well, but they've added new things in that make this game feel completely different. So, you know, while lots of people will just say, oh, it is Dark Souls with ninjas, it actually feels like it's coming into its own and it's accepting this almost new subgenre of the Souls games.
Yeah, I mean, my question was me being a bit flippant because but they have actually said in the past, I think, that it's kind of quite a departure from the Souls mould of game. So I find it interesting that you say that there is still a lot of that DNA in there.
Yeah, I mean, when I was playing it, I felt like I was playing a Souls game at its heart.
So one of the few things that I do know, despite not really paying too much attention to a lot of the pre-release trailers and all that stuff, is that they have really changed the combat in the game. How does it actually differ from Dark Souls, though?
So I guess with Dark Souls you had the shields and you had to utilise them, so it wasn't just pure attack. And then in Bloodborne it was all about being fast and regaining your health from your enemies. And this, it's more about really thinking about fights, because you can go into a fight and attack, but then when the enemy hits you, if you can time a deflection perfectly, they'll open up a death blow. So the entire way the combat's going to work in this one is that you have to whittle down your enemy's posture and stance to basically get them to open up a weak spot, and that's how you will take them down.
So you speak about stances. Is it something a bit like For Honor, where you've got different stances that you can go into a fight with, or is it that technical, or is it kind of just looking for the opening for your attacks?
Yeah, it's more like looking for the opening. So what I've played, and I played a few fights against a variety of enemies, it was all very much, you can attack as much as you want, but once you see them readying an attack, you need to be perfectly timing your deflection, and it almost like knocks them off balance, and then you'll open up a spot and then you can go for a death blow, which is essentially the only way you're going to be able to kill most of these enemies. It's not traditional Soulsborne where you whittle away at their health. They are very resilient to your attacks, and most of the time they're going to be blocking your attacks. So it's all about finding the perfect opening.
Yeah, also going beyond the regular grunts, you've then got the big boss characters, and FromSoftware obviously very, very renowned for the bosses that they come up with. What are they like in Sekiro? Are they still the kind of hulking great big monsters that tower over you?
The ones that I've seen were all fitting into that character of big hulking monsters.
Yeah.
But as I was saying earlier, so even I guess how I mentioned in my preview that the graphics have been heightened. It's like the enemies in this game are genuinely scary, and their attacks are so diverse and they seem so powerful that you really don't want to get caught anywhere near them. And it adds extra pressure onto your attacks because you have to be so careful with your timings, with your deflections and your hitting, because if you miss it, then it's almost instantly death. They just feel completely overpowered, but in a good way, in the way that you'd want for a Souls-like game.
Moving on from the combat, another thing that's really changing is the world and how we're exploring it. Obviously it's set in Japan, but one of the big things, one of the hooks of the game is that you've got a grappling hook for a hand, which is going to be pretty different. What does it do for the way that you explore the world? I mean, can you just basically skip past enemies even?
I mean, that is one thing that I did on the preview. The main idea, I guess, of it is that it really helps you get really good vantage points. So you can grapple hook to trees or rooftops, and you can basically take in the world from there, assess the enemies, assess formations, because this game's really about crowd control. It's a lot of the fights are going to be about splitting up enemies. So it's really good to look down on a formation and think, how am I best going to face this? What's the most efficient way to take these enemies down? But then, as you said, it really helps with exploration too, and you can kind of freely explore the world by just zipping around with your grappling hook. And if you wanted to, which I did a few times during the demo, you can run on the rooftops and completely surpass groups.
That sounds pretty cool. I guess the way that you pitched it just a second ago, it kind of reminded me a little bit of the Batman Arkham method of stealth, where you're kind of just up in the rafters. Is there any of that in the game where you can just get these quick single blows and just get rid of someone?
Yeah, there are a few combos you can do. As if you get above somebody, you can pretty much take them down in one hit. I guess same with sneak attacks. There's a lot of stealth in the game, and if you are stealthy enough, you can dispatch enemies one by one and quickly dispatch of an area without making any attention and drawing more, I guess, fighters to your position.
That sounds really interesting. It sounds like a very big shift from like having to learn a route in a particular area, like almost rote, so that you can cleave your way through a particular path. One of the things that you wrote in your preview was that there is a bit of that Souls structure with regards to not bonfires, but checkpoints, basically, where you've got these hard points that you revert back to. I take it it's kind of similar in that regard, where you're exploring an area, opening up new avenues.
Yeah, one of the things that we were all told to do is if you come across these idols, to sit by them, and that will activate a checkpoint. And as we all know from the Souls series, the bonfires were the checkpoints. And although we didn't get a very big taste of it at the demo, it looks like it's going to be the same thing. And maybe your exploration, if you take off in one direction using your grappling hook, will lead you to a brand new area that you couldn't get to previously, or maybe it's going to open up a shortcut to another idol that you were previously at. So I think what I got from the demo was that this world is going to be so much more free than the other Souls games, and it looks like there's a lot more paths that you can take to get to the same singular endpoint.
Another thing, keep referring back to Souls, which is inevitable, but obviously Souls is in the title. You were collecting souls. In Bloodborne, you were collecting blood. Are you collecting shadows, I guess, in Sekiro? Is there some kind of aspect to that where you're upgrading and you've got RPG leveling?
Yeah, so they're still upgrading. So at the idols, you can upgrade your items there. There's lots of really intricate like collectibles. So there's unseen aid, which is something that you can collect as you go. And then sometimes with enemies fall, it'll almost be money that you're collecting from them. So I think a lot of that is still hidden in the main game, and they just want us to get a taste of it now. But it looks like a lot of it's going to be revolved around upgrading. And I know your tool, your prosthetic, you can also upgrade that too.
That's cool. I'm looking forward to ridiculous grappling hook attachments.
Oh, yeah.
You did say that it looks pretty great. Is it that big of a jump over Dark Souls 3 and Bloodborne? And also, most importantly, did it run well? Because the series does have a slightly shaky history with console performance.
So we played on the PS4, and it ran really smoothly. Everything felt really fluid, and I didn't have any problems with the frame rate. In terms of the graphics, I think it's a different approach because, as we've seen in the other games, they've always been quite dark and gothic, and then this one's a little bit more colourful. There are wooded areas, there are cherry blossoms everywhere, and it feels, I think, softer is the word I would use. It feels just a little bit more attentive, and it looks just that little bit more finer. It feels like the entire world has just been put under a fine microscope, and detail in everything is just to the point. I was really impressed with the way it looked, actually, and even looking back through other people's footage today, once the preview went live, I was wowed at how good it looked, even though I only played it like 12 hours ago.
Yeah. All right, that seems like a pretty good place to wrap things up. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is out in actually just a couple of weeks from now, on the 22nd of March. It will be out for PS4, Xbox One, and PC, and we will obviously have a review going up as soon as we possibly can. Thanks so much for chatting with me today, Rebecca. It sounds really, really interesting.
Thank you for having me on.
You can also head over to thesixthaxis.com, where we've got Rebecca's preview. But before you go, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this. Hopefully, we will see you again soon. Goodbye.
Bye.